Fantastic. Thank you very much, Luke. So, looking at Kawai pianos, what do Kawai pianos really represent to you?
Well, for me personally, Kawai really represents premium quality, innovation, forward-looking, technological advancement, basically.
Fantastic. So, if we look at the piano in a little bit more detail, obviously, touch is really important. So, how does it really stand out, the touch of this piano?
So, this particular instrument has the Grand Feel 3, which is basically a fully wooden key combined with a ebony and ivory feel composite top. So basically you're getting the weight and feel of a wooden key, which is typically what you'd find on an acoustic piano, combined with the composite top, which is basically a type of plastic which is a bit porous and allows you to basically feel that tactile sensation on the keys. You really feel connected to the keyboard. It absorbs a bit of moisture, perspiration, that kind of thing. So, it allows you to really feel centered and grounded in the keyboard as you're playing and performing.
Fantastic. So obviously it's a bit more environmentally friendly than having authentic ebony and ivory, so that's great. But it's also got a longer key, and how does that benefit a player?
Well, so the longer key just gives a bit more tactile feedback, essentially. It increases the sort of the sense of the weight, the sense of the mechanism, as you depress the key, there's a kind of tilt, for lack of a better term. And, that gives you a sort of sense of where you're at between the top of the key and towards the bottom of the key.
Fantastic. So you've really got the well-researched and developed technology behind the keys. So again, another important feature is the sound. So can you tell us a little bit more about the sounds that are in here and give us a few examples?
Yeah, so Kawai's sound samples are, some of the best on the market, I would say. And so they include their flagship models. So this is the SKX. Which is their full-size concert grand, and those are recorded in a specially built anechoic chamber, which is basically a special room which reduces the interference and sort of acoustical noise that you would normally associate with any ordinary type of room. And basically that means that the microphones that they use can pick up the purest sound from the instrument. So what you're getting is a sort of, very filtered, pure sound that comes directly from their best pianos. On this particular model, it also features the SKX Competition Grand, which is distinguished from the regular SKX Grand because it comes from Kawai's own research that they've done through their interactions with the Hamamatsu competition, the Chopin competition, and other major international piano competitions around the world. So there is a distinct difference in the sound. I can play a little bit so you can hear some of the differences. So, very common piece that you'll hear in competitions, for example, is one of the Chopin etudes is quite frequently used as one of the preliminary requirements for most competitions. So if I take Opus 10 number 1, for example, in C major, very rich, very full, very kind of, striking tone, really powerful impression, I would say. Now, if we compare that to the original SKX piano, which I can find here, SKX Concert Grand, still wonderful instrument, but has a subtly different quality, a different tone. So it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more mellow, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more rounded. And so it really depends on what purposes, what kind of repertoire that you're playing, that you can experiment with this at home.
It's still got quite a bold sound, but it's just got that little bit less, as you say, slightly more mellower feel to it, certainly.
Yeah, it doesn't have such a big striking impression. So it would be suitable for a different kind of repertoire. So for example, if I take slow movement of the Beethoven concerto. very suitable for this kind of repertoire. And you can experiment with this. You can change around, to your particular, tastes.
And obviously you can play a lot more expressive with this keyboards as well. So obviously there's things like the let-off simulation that recreate the sort of feel and the tactile element of the hammers lifting as well, which is really quite important, I think. But I think it's great that there's all these features that are on these high-end pianos that are in world competitions, basically. So they are taking the best elements and incorporating them into these instruments you can take home and have sitting quite comfortably in your living room.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, the reality is not many people can afford the kind of concert grands that you would use in competition and huge concert halls. And also not just the affordability aspect, but it's also the space and size. If you're trying to take a typical semi-detached house, for example, and you try to stick a full-size concert grand, it will be deafening for you, the neighbours, and the whole street.
Of course, and obviously the maintenance of it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of them could be 9 feet long, for example, and all the strings and everything, but you can have it all in this sort of handy size.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the maintenance aspect is a big thing for me. One of the things I've often felt about pianos in general, acoustic pianos in general, is that they're often only as good as the technicians who maintain them. And, you can have the best produced piano in the world, but if it's not looked after, it can be for naught, really. It's useless, in the wrong hands. However, with the digital keyboards, there is that benefit where, if you don't have access to a, world-class piano technician to service your SKX at home, you can have a digital keyboard, which allows you to, experience some of the qualities that you would get from that without having to, engage a master piano technician.
And as you say, you mentioned technicians. We've got the virtual technician built into here, so you can really fine-tune the elements of your performance.
Yeah, so the virtual piano technician you can access on this panel here. You can also connect the iPad or the Android through the Kawai app, which can connect directly to this, so you get a bigger version of it, essentially. And basically, with the virtual technician, you can control things like reverb, attack, quality of sound, many different parameters which, help you fine-tune the experience that you want to have with your instrument.
And even sort of place the piano in a different room, whether you're in a cathedral or more of a club-based, or whether you're sort of in quite an intimate area, playing to a few people, or whether you're sort of playing into larger areas, you can really fine-tune and basically pick the piano up and put it into those different contexts.
Exactly, yeah. So it's really helpful in that respect.
So when you're out on the roads, you can kind of simulate how you're going to play and sort of hear it back a bit more authentically by doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's also a few other sort of features. I mean, sort of looking at the design, it is that little bit taller, isn't it?
Yeah, so the aspect of the height in this instrument is very interesting because this is very similar to the kind of height that you would find on a grand piano, which is distinct from an upright piano. So normally the upright piano would be something around here, whereas a grand piano is typically here for the music stand. Now, obviously, that might seem like a small distinction, but for example, if you're used to practicing with music on an upright piano at home, and then you go to do your exam, for example, and they give you a grand piano, which is very common, you might get distracted from the fact that now the music is quite a bit higher up. I mean, I know in my own experience, especially when I was very young, and I used to often play with music in public and obviously for exams and things like this, it could be quite off-putting. So, having this extra height on the body of the piano can help, deal with that potential issue and get that experience and seeing what.
And if you're used to just sort of looking up, it's more that muscle memory and you know exactly where you're looking.
Yeah, it's to make you feel more comfortable, essentially, when it comes to playing on a grand piano.
Speaking of like the small little touches, even things like the clear plastic music clips on here, which, is quite a small thing, but actually it can be quite a big thing for...
Yeah, so basically with these clips, just basically means that there's less interference when you're reading the music, but less visual interference, That's very important because, if it's covering some important bit of music, then it can be quite distracting. Yeah.
So something small, but it can make a big difference. Yep. And thinking about making a difference, the sound and the reproduction of that sound is really important. If they spend all this time, effort, money, resource into creating these world-class samples, it needs to be recreated. So high-end Japanese quality components. And there's a special sort of speaker array underneath.
Yes, so the speaker array underneath is actually very similar to the experience that you would have on an upright piano at home, for example, where obviously on an upright piano, the strings are going right to the bottom. So when you're playing, not only do you experience the sound from here, because obviously there's a speaker here too, but there's also speakers underneath, so you get this three-dimensional experience of the sound, rather than just, one direction that just comes directly at you, essentially. So you really get to have this, as I say, three-dimensional...
It's quite an immersive sound, isn't it?
Exactly.
So you feel like you're part of it. But also when you plug headphones in, there's something special about the way it's been recorded as well. So when you plug a set of headphones in, you're not going to get as much auditory fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So quite often, with many keyboards, when you plug headphones in, it's basically like having your head right next to the keyboard. And, that can be quite unpleasant. And, over time, it can probably do hearing damage if it's too loud in particular. Now, obviously, if you have anything too loud, it can cause auditory damage. But where it concerns the way these samples are recorded, it gives this three-dimensional feeling rather than direct feeling. They've considered the acoustical properties, which happens, when you're playing a grand piano or an upright piano at home, the sound reverberates around the room, which obviously means that you not only hear it here, you hear it to the side, to the back, you hear it everywhere, and that, creates a certain kind of global auditory experience. And they've tried to recreate that as best as possible through the headphones, which is, a really admirable thing to do.
Fantastic. So that just shows the attention to detail, not only they've done in the sound, but we've also talked about the quality of the components in terms of the wooden keys. We've talked about the small little details. We've even looked at the sounds and sort of just how world-class pianos are sampled and put in here. So there's so much going on under the cover of the CA701 from Kawai. So thank you very much to Luke, and thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and comment below. Thanks for watching.